Hello and welcome back to B&T TV. Today you join us at Spark Foundry, the Publicis-owned media agency. Today we're going to be talking about planning, pitching and behavioural psychographic targeting, whatever that is. Imogen, thank you very much for joining us today. You've been at Spark for about 4 years now. What's changed during that time?
Well, there's lots of things that have changed during that time. But I think if you're asking me about what are we really proud of as an agency and as a team, I think we have collectively created one of the fastest growing, most commercially literate and happiest agencies in the country.
Perfect. You picked up a couple of clients towards the end of last year. How have you been finding the pitching process, considering that there's a lot of talk about declining budgets?
Well, I don't want to be cheeky, but it was actually 5 major wins in Q4, just for the record. But unfortunately, I can't talk about any of them, but that is the reality. On your question, though, I think we're not really having conversations about how much money do you have. We are having conversations about how do we be absolutely forensic about making sure that we're making decisions that make the best use of the money that you do have. And that might mean thinking about things like how do we quantify the return on investment by channel, by format, how do we make absolutely rigorous decisions about where we invest that money. I think for us it's much more about being able to quantify how much difference we make to a client's bottom line. And if you're having that kind of conversation, then the scale of the investment is really not your number one priority. It's the effectiveness of the investment.
So they're not asking you to do more with less, they're just asking you to kind of track it better.
Well, I think that's a little bit of both. More with less is a great challenge. I think innovation comes from being really pushed to think harder about what you've got. But as a business, we are absolutely dedicated to making sure that we can tell you exactly what contribution we've made from a commercial perspective through the investment of media.
And what's on your mind at the moment that not enough people are talking about in the industry?
I think it's fascinating that we're still not having a conversation often enough or robustly enough about the value that agencies bring to client business. So we run complex businesses. We make a quantifiable difference to the bottom line of our clients' businesses. We are able to make a discernible difference that can assist our marketing colleagues in taking rigorous information about return on the investment that comes with media to their boards and to their C-suite. Yet we still are often evaluated on the basis of cost as opposed to contribution. And I think that's a miss for the entire industry.
Perfect. And you were on the B&T Women in Media Power List last year. What do you think the industry has to do to improve work for women?
If I may, I think the question should probably be, what can we do to improve the industry and the employee experience for everybody? I don't think it should be a gendered question, to be perfectly honest. I think we've got a responsibility to be building processes and policy that helps to increase happiness and engagement, satisfaction, advocacy for everybody in the industry at every level of the industry. And to me, that is less a question of what's in the best interests of women and more a question of what's in the best interests for everybody.
Josh, thank you for your time today. What's going on in media that not everyone is talking about but should be?
So for me, probably the biggest thing at the moment is recognising the opportunity that exists in behavioural or psychographic targeting over demographic. And I think the best way of explaining that is this kind of case study that came out of the UK a couple of years ago that found people who are fans of the fizzy drink Orangina were more likely to have things in common with each other than people who were the same age. And that kind of checks out, right? In that if I connect with someone, I don't connect with them because we're both 29-year-old males. I connect with them because we share similar interests. So being able to convert that human truth into a buying audience, but also more broadly into a strategy or a planning segment as well, seems like a really big untapped opportunity for me at the moment.
And you're the strategy director here at Spark Foundry, so you kind of touch all the different parts of the business. How do you make sure you get everyone on board?
Yeah, so I have sort of 2 golden rules, I suppose, when it comes to rallying the troops, as it were. And the first is around creating strategy that's really, really tangible. So oftentimes you'll see sort of quite lofty, sexy sounding strategic packs, but they're not directional when it comes to being operational for your planning or buying teams. And for me, that sort of raises the question of, well, why does it exist if it's not going to be able to actually show up as a finished product in the world? The second one is just about getting really bloody excited as well, because I'm a firm believer that if you're not excited about the strategic direction, then you can't expect the people on your team to be excited about it as well.
Perfect. And you have spent some time working at creative agencies. So what sort of lessons have you been able to take from creative into media?
The first one for me is this recognition that a creative idea and a good creative idea can literally come from anywhere. And when I say anywhere, I mean it can come from within or outside of the agency, and it can also come from any discipline. I think there's a quite pervasive belief that good creative ideas are kind of the sole remit of a creative team or a strategic department, and that's simply not the case. The second thing for me is understanding that rigour can get you a hell of a long way, but at the end of the day, you need to combine it with creativity to produce those moments where everyone sort of has the hair on the back of their neck standing up. You get goosebumps when you know that there's that lovely big idea in a room as well.
Sophie, thank you for joining us today. You've been with Spark for a decade now. What's changed?
10 years, yes. Definitely size, I think. When I started, we were 30 odd people. Now we're some 230 plus people. So as you can imagine, definitely a lot of new people into the business, which I think has been really good in terms of just diversity of thought, and different industries have come and joined us. But we've also had quite a good consistency in the people that have stayed with the business. So while I'm 10 years, I'm also not the longest standing. Our leadership team is also very, very long standing, and I think what we've committed to is this idea of what we've wanted the agency to be, and just been chipping away at it for 8-10 years. So analytics is a massive part, and I think over that time, what we built 10 years ago is now even stronger. So it allows us the ability to actually put our money where our mouth is, and do a lot of the things of what other people might claim to do versus what we actually fundamentally believe and what we do every day.
You're the head of planning and connection here. Kind of most people will understand what the planning means. What does the connection bit mean?
Wonderful question. Definitely had a question for myself, but it is exactly what it says on the tin, and very large agency now, so planning's job is to effectively act as a bit of the red thread that connects all the different disciplines that we've got, so from analytics to strategy to our activation teams, both offline and online, and just making sure that everyone is basically singing from the same hymn sheet all throughout the line, and that we're all working to effectively not just media outcomes, but business outcomes.
Perfect. And going back to the planning bit of your role, what media are you planning to buy this year?
Very good question. I wish there was a one-size-fits-all solution or a silver bullet that we had, but it's a combination of channels. It's multi-channel. It's how you build up what is the most effective outcome of things to actually achieve what your client or what the problem is trying to solve for, and how you use those together to be as effective as possible.
Emily, what does an average day look like for you at Spark?
Well, my role is quite hybrid, so I work across activations or trading and planning and client management. So I come across quite a lot of different tasks every day, which is really exciting. Anywhere between planning campaigns for clients and presenting, all the way through to buying TV or other forms of above the line media. So really quite a versatile role, which is what I love about it.
You joined during the pandemic. What was that kind of onboarding process like, and how has it changed since COVID has sort of ended?
Yeah, look, I guess I was probably one of the lucky ones. I had a bit of office life exposure before going into the second round of lockdown in Sydney. So I had 2 months in, and then everyone was obviously over to online working, which was quite hard. Being my first agency role, it was quite difficult to learn and grasp the understanding of my role, but I guess the company put in a lot of different initiatives that definitely helped. We had a lot of online video calls every day. We had trivia sessions to get to know one another across the agency. Even had an online Harry Potter escape room at one stage, which was really interesting. They also implemented one that I actually really love called pre-payday meals, where we usually would have like a banquet-esque lunch held in the office the day before our payday, and throughout lockdown we actually had that expensed instead, so a little bit of a treat yourself incentive, which was lovely.
And so a question on the work. What goes into making a good campaign, and what makes a good campaign into a great one?
I guess it really comes down to communication, transparency, open flow of communication between us and the client to be able to really understand, the business objectives and what they actually really want to get out of their media campaign and what they want delivered. And off the back of that, I guess it's up to us to then be able to do that and bring that campaign to life. And what makes it great, I guess, is just that ability or that willingness to challenge the status quo, really. It's about trying to find new formats and different environments, which isn't always possible, I guess, for all clients. But when you do, it creates magic. It's amazing.
Perfect. Thank you for your time. And if we can get those pre-payday lunches at B&T, we'll be very grateful.